I've paid thousands of dollars in courses to learn what you're basically teaching on your podcast for free. What you're putting out there is so valuable. So, I just really want to acknowledge you, and I definitely send everyone to your podcast.
You were virtually one of the first mentors that I looked up to and started following. You're always one step ahead of the game. So I just wanted to give you kudos and props for that, because lots of people are watching, lots of people are learning from it.
Tucker and the whole TTM crew, Dan and Chris, thanks so much for your support. I love what you guys do, and a huge, huge fan. Having this support's huge. So I'm grateful for that.
What's up, everybody out there in listener land? This is episode 257 of the Real Dealz podcast. I'm back this week. I've got an awesome show for you. You guys are gonna dig it. But before we get into all that, let's talk about last week's show. If you have not checked it out, I kind of, we'll say, dove into my feelings about partnerships. And if you guys are doing partnerships in any way, or you're thinking about partnering with somebody in the world of real estate investing, I highly advise you go listen to last week's show. And hopefully you got some takeaways, or you will get some takeaways on my feelings about partnership, which aren't all bad, by the way. Just what I've seen and how I've seen partnerships work. So make sure you check that show out if you have not already. Now, this week, I've got a second-time guest. Crazy Uncle Karl is back. We'll call it Karl 2.0. I got him back on this week's show because last time we talked about some of the deals that he was working, but we got a little background on kind of his time in the world of real estate investing, what his business looks like, and how it functions, where he gets a lot of his deals from. I wanted to bring him back because he's got a lot of crazy stories. He's got a lot of deals that are insanely profitable. But I wanted to get into the weeds a little bit on exactly how he finds the deals, how he markets to them, and how he puts the deals together. And so we go through a handful of deals that he's doing right now that are not only super, I guess we'll call them high level as far as difficulty goes once he gets into them, but just crazy on top of that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they're all deals that we can all find. We can all get to the root of where he's finding these deals. It's just having the skill sets once you find them to be able to take them from a lead and transfer that lead into a deal that then creates money for you. And that's what he's gotten really, really good at. And so we're going to dive into a handful of different kind of case studies on this week's call, or this week's show, that really talk about how it is that he took a lead and he turned into a deal, and that deal then made him a ton of money. And so he's got some of the craziest stories that I've ever heard too, by the way. I mean, he's got tenants that are squatter tenants that are suing him. I don't know. We dive into it in the interview. I'll let him talk more about it, but I've never heard anything like that. And we've got some crazy squatters here in the Portland area. We've got a lot of homelessness to deal with, which causes a lot of problems for us. But we've never been personally sued by squatters. So he gets to check that box. He's the first one to win that race, although I'm not sure it's a good race to win. But either way, I appreciate Karl coming back on, and he shares a ton of wisdom with you guys in this week's interview. And I know you guys are going to get a lot out of it. So make sure you listen to it, and man, put what he's doing to work. I tell you what, there's a lot of people that talk about how difficult it is to find deals. This guy's got them coming out of his ears, and the reason being is because he's just focusing on some niches, and he's working those niches really well. So anyway, that's this week's show. We'll get into it here in just a minute. Now, before we do that, first thing I want to talk about, as always, is our housekeeping items. For those of you guys that have not already, make sure you go download our Driving for Dollars app. It's in the iTunes Store. It's in the Google Play Store. You download it. It's free. When you download it, you get a free marketing course that we put together that tells you how to use all of the data that the app gives in order to market better. And then from there, you get a 5-property free trial. So you can cruise around, you can try it out. And then after that, it's $34.99, and you get all the data that you need to build Driving for Dollars lists each and every month. So make sure you go download it. It's an amazing tool. It's one that we've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into building. And now you get to use it for only $34.99 a month, which is a bargain in comparison to what that thing costs to build, that's for sure. On another front, I want to mention our Deal Finders Academy. For those of you guys that are interested in joining our mastermind group, we'd love to have you. There's a few spots available. It just depends on which metro market you're in. We've got about 120 individuals from across the country. We don't like to stack people right on top of each other, so we want to make sure that there's definitely some open space for you. But if you're interested in joining, we'd love to talk with with you, that's for sure. We've got an event this next month that I'll be speaking at and partaking in, the Pacific Northwest Real Estate Expo that Tarl and the Fixate crew's putting on, and I think we've got an entire panel of DFA members up there, as well as a bunch of other DFA members that are going to be joining us at the event. So it's just a great group. It's a fantastic community, a lot of real high-level people doing all different types of things in the world of real estate investing. So if you want to join us there, we'd love to have you. Reach out to us, and Dan will see if we have room in your market. It's only $199 a month, people. That's it. And month to month, there's no contracts. Most people stay for a long time because it's a great community, but it's $199 a month, and you get to be a part of an amazing mastermind group, which is a tremendous value. We haven't raised prices in almost 5 years now. So reach out to us, and we'll see if we got room for you. On another front, our DFA Launchpad is a great place for those of you guys that are at the beginning of your journey to kind of have access to myself and our team here, as well as a bunch of other material that can kind of help you get started in the world of real estate investing. So if you're at the very beginning of your journey and you want a little help along the way and some access to us, click on the link in the show notes page, and the DFA Launchpad is probably a good place to do that. Now that wraps up our housekeeping items, so without further ado, let's get into what is going on with myself and TTM over the course of the past week. Well, I can tell you it's been an interesting week, that's for sure. A little bit on the stressful side, to be totally honest with you. We've had a lot of things that could have gone a couple of different ways. One of those ways being good, the other being not so good. And fortunately, a lot of them have gone in the good direction. But there was not always evidence that that was going to be the case. So the first thing we had happen that I'll mention is we actually had a buyer walk out of closing. We haven't had that happen in a long time. It wasn't anything that we did, so it wasn't bad business on our part by any means, but it was just some confusion on a title report with an old piece of land that was sold by the original owners to the county, and how to interpret it on the title report and what that actually means. So ultimately, the buyer is back in there actually right now as I'm recording this to sign, but they walked out last night, which anytime you guys get a call, it says that your buyer is walking out of closing at the 11th hour after the property's been off the market for a month. You moved all the staging out. You've got higher cost financing against it. You can imagine the stress that causes. So last night I was becoming a title examiner, looking at everything and trying to figure out, okay, what is it that is problematic here and how can we solve the problem? And ultimately we solved it, but a little bit of a bumpy ride getting this one into closing, that's for sure. I'll be glad to wrap this project up. House turned out great, but one of those that we bought last year, and I'm just ready to get it off the books, to be totally honest with you, and move on and move that money over, that's for sure. Another thing that kind of could have gone in both directions, but it ended up going in a good direction, is we've got an amazing piece of property that looks over Lake Oswego. We've had it for a number of years. And we've been working with the city. I think I mentioned to you guys on a previous episode, we've been working with the city on a joint venture storm system that we were going to put in. And the city pulled the plug a couple of weeks ago, basically saying they don't have funding to do it. And so if we were going to do it, we're going to have to do it on our own. And it was like over a $500,000 system. So obviously we're not going to put that in on our own, or even a portion thereof. It just was going to be insanely costly. So what I did is I said, okay, there's got to be a way for us to develop this lot without putting the storm system in. And I've learned a lot on this process, I'll tell you that. I've met with multiple geotechs. We've had tons of testing of the soil done, all kinds of things. So at this point, I have a master's in geotechnical analysis and stormwater management. I can tell you that for sure. I have learned that from taking on this anchor project of all anchor projects. But the silver lining is this. I met with another geotech this past week, and he finally got back to me this past week on what exactly we can do in order to make sure that the ground is completely stable if we were to build a new home. And we didn't want to push the envelope. We don't want to build something in an old slide area. It's a historic slide zone, which means like ancient, like prehistoric. At some point, the ground moved. It hasn't moved in anywhere in the AD era, we'll call it. But historically, geology would say that it moved at some point. Now, what we've been able to do is come up with a plan that will allow us to build a house on the property and soak in that amazing view. That's a panoramic view of the entire lake. It's a flat lot too, which is awesome. You'd never get that. And also be able to infiltrate our stormwater on site and still have there be no chance of the ground moving, because you don't want to normally inject water into a slide zone, whether it be historic or otherwise. And so the new geotech that we got did his new calculations, and we were able to come up with a plan, which I'll dive into detail on that probably at a later date as we get closer to it. But we got a plan, and the plan checks out. All the calcs work. And so basically now we don't have to put in the storm system. We just have to adjust our plans with the city to show them how we're going going to basically stabilize the dirt, and then we can infiltrate on site. And once we can do that and we get that all checked out with the city, then we can either build the house or sell the lot. And at that point, if we sell the lot, new buyers can utilize the same stormwater management plan that we have in place and approved with the city. And the lot itself is probably worth somewhere between $1 and $2 million, probably at the midway point-ish, something like that. And we bought the property for about $1 million less than that. So the silver lining is that we will make money. It'll be a good amount of money. If we build a house there, it's probably worth about $2.8 to $3 million as a finished product. Or if we sell the lot, it's probably worth somewhere around $1.5 million. So we will make money, but there was a lot to learn on this project, and just a lot of time, money, effort along the way. And like I said, that's where I got my master's degree in geotechnical analysis and stormwater management, all wrapped up into this one project. So it goes back to what I said a couple weeks ago. You learn the most on the projects that don't go right. You learn very little on the ones that do go right, because it's just kind of like autopilot. But the ones that go sideways, or that become a huge challenge, or giant anchor projects, those are the ones where you really learn a lot more and you become a better investor, that's for sure. And that was this is one of those, no question. The only reason we bought it is because it has one of the best views in all of Lake Oswego, and it still has that. And now we just got to get through putting this report together and getting it checked off by the city, but then we can either sell the lot or build a house. So I'm pretty excited about that. Another thing I want to mention is we got a new deal that we locked up yesterday, and it's kind of an interesting deal. It's a house that's really not that messed up. The sellers redid one of the bathrooms completely, redid the entire kitchen. Looks a really nice kitchen. The house does have some problems. It's not totally retail ready, but the floors are a little wonky in it. It's got a little bit of sagging going on, and so that's the one thing that would prevent it from selling on a retail level easily. The other thing is that the sellers are buying a new house, and they're moving to this new house, and they need the funds now in order to close on the new house. So they basically have to do a quick sale in order to use the cash from this sale to close the new transaction, because they want to move to this nicer, newer house. And it's just part of their life plan. And so they were willing to take essentially a discount. They were going to trade equity for speed and ease of transaction. So we originally had it under contract for about $15,000 more than what we have it under contract for now. And we did some negotiation. We went a little back and forth. I went over there yesterday. We shook hands, and deal's done. And a notable thing, it was first time ever, but the seller actually gave Chris an electric guitar. Not a great one from what people in the DFA told me, because I posted a picture, but an electric guitar. First time we ever had a seller give that to us as a parting gift from one of our appointments there. And I got a little game for my kids, which was nice of them. But anyway, they seem like nice people. We got a good project. It's in Southwest Portland. It's right by Lewis and Clark College. It should be a pretty quick turn, and it should be really desirable on the retail level once we get it there. So that's pretty much what's going on with us in TTM over the course of the past week as far as notable stuff. Good, bad, and ugly. Oh, and that one, it looked like they may not take our reduction, which was where it could have gone either direction. And at that point, we had a bunch of due diligence, time, money, and effort into kind of doing our due diligence on that project. And had they not taken it, or we worked out a deal, we would have had some sunk costs in there, and it ended up that they took it, or we worked out our differences anyway, and we got an acceptable price, and we're moving forward. So all three of those things worked out in our favor, fortunately, at this point, and looks like it's going to continue that way. So it's a good thing. It's a good week in that regard. All right, so that pretty much wraps up what's going on with me and TTM. So without further ado, let's get into the rest of the show and the interview with Crazy Uncle Karl 2.0. All right, Real Dealz podcast listeners, I want to talk quickly about our show's sponsor, Iron Bridge Lending. If you guys have not reached out to Iron Bridge already to talk to them about funding some of your upcoming flip projects, I highly encourage you to do so. I've known the owner of Iron Bridge for a very long time. I've personally borrowed millions of dollars from them over the years to do a number of different projects, and I can say without a doubt, they are the best hard money lending company I have ever come across, and that is the reason why they are the sole sponsor of this show. I've had a lot of other companies reach out to me and want to sponsor this show, but I just won't do it. I feel like I need to be genuine in who we have sponsoring the show, and it needs to be somebody that I've personally done a ton of business with. So I personally vouch for their ability to be the best, hands down, in the world of hard money lending. You won't find better programs, you won't find better terms, and they're lending or will be lending in over 20 states. So chances are, if you're hearing this in whatever state you're in, it's definitely worth it to check out their website, reach out to them, see if they're lending in your state, and if they are, I would absolutely encourage you to do business with them. Another very cool thing to note is that they have a program for most rehabs where you can actually borrow up to 90% of the purchase price. Now, this is given the fact that you are actually buying a deal, which if you're listening to the show, that means you probably are. But if you have an actual deal on the table, they'll fund up to 90% of your purchase price, and they'll even give you rehab funds on top of that, which means that it only takes 10% down to get into a project, which is unbelievable in the hard money world. So do yourself a favor, reach out to Iron Bridge Lending, have a conversation with them, see if they're a good fit for you and for your next project. I can guarantee you that you'll be happy that you did. All right, everybody, welcome back. I'm welcoming back a guest that we've had before. I'm having him back because he's got some crazy stories, and we didn't really get into them all on the last show because we wanted to get into kind of, how he got into real estate, what his business looks like. But now he's back, and Crazy Uncle Karl's back. 2.0 interview, we'll call it. And we're going to talk all about his crazy real estate deals and stories this time around. If any of you guys are friends with him on Facebook, I'm sure you see his highly entertaining posts quite often, that most of which have to do with real estate. And the guy deals with some interesting stuff. So without further ado, Karl, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And I will tell everybody out there in listener land that I got a lovely care package from Karl that I opened up this morning. I've got a Uncle Karl's Goat Farm t-shirt, which he's wearing right now. And I'm sure any of you guys that are friends with him on Facebook have seen that. And I got a clean pair of Tweaker Jordans. So I got to say thanks for that.
Yep.
So welcome back. Let's talk crazy deals. What's going on in the world of Karl right now?
Well, we'll start out with the shoe deal. This one was on Wallowa Lake. It started out, it was pretty cool. It was a tax delinquent deal, and there was open estate file. We ended up contacting both heirs to the property. And we said, why you're letting this house sit? Well, what's going on with it? We started talking to them, and they said, well, we can't afford the taxes on it. It's a heritage property. There's liens and judgments, and we just don't want it. So we made deals with both of the heirs. There's two heirs. And it was real simple. All we did was pull the estate file, and the lady's name is right on it. We called her. And anybody could have done this. I don't understand why somebody else didn't do this in Charlotte.
How do you know? Quick question, just so I understand the logistics of it. Like, can you search for open estates where, like, there's somebody has died and they just haven't completed the probate or the estate is still open? Is that how you find these leads?
Yeah, you could, but for us it was a tax delinquent.
Okay, so that was the initial. List, okay,
and then we have somebody downtown that pulls the estate file, and we just pulled the estate file and called the phone number. It's really simple process. Anybody could have done this, and so we ended up getting in contact. We made them a deal. We said, okay, there were some judgments, some liens, and some problems on the property. So we made them an agreement. We gave each heir $500 up front, and they got another $2,000 when we cleaned up the title. So basically, we were on title for $1,000, and we owned a house. And we asked them, said, hey, have you guys been in the house lately? He said, oh, we haven't been there in like 8 years. We don't even know what's going on. So we said, okay. So we went by and found out there were squatters living there. And it was sort of funny because they had 3 cars. None of them had tags. And they had a big dog that was barking every time we came to the door. So we're like, we need to be careful. So what we ended up doing was our partner, Joe, he ended up getting going through the foreclosure, the eviction process to get him evicted.
Well, let's go back real quick. You show up at the property, right? You call the people, they want to do a deal. You go to the property the first time you drive up, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of a game of Russian roulette, right? What am I going to get here? Did you know that it was occupied by squatters when you first contacted the heirs, or was this something you figured out along the process? And what was that first interaction like? Did you go knock on the door and be like, hey, guess what? You got to get out? Or what was that all about?
Well, yeah, we didn't know. We made the deal with the heirs, and we drove by, and then we went and knocked on the door afterwards. But we knocked on the door, left notes, and nobody would come. We knew something weird was when you have three cars with no tags on them, that's sort of a red flag. And a big barking dog, and the fact they would never come to the door and never call us back, we figured something was up. So then we went through the eviction process. We had the original owners write up an affidavit saying that no one's supposed to be in the house. And so then we got the police to come out to the house. Now, I showed up late for the eviction. My buddy Joe is drilling out the front door, and the 2 police officers have their guns drawn. And so I walk around the side and go, hey, the side door is wide open. What's going on, guys? And they're like, it was locked a few minutes ago. So what happened was the police go in, their guns drawn, and I guess somebody was in there and they ran out. And as soon as we got in, we saw this big screen TV with 4 cameras. So they had 4 cameras set all over the place. They were watching us the whole time. And so they ran out the side. I guess they didn't know we were coming. And so once we got in there, we started looking around, and there's over 100 pair of Nike Air Jordans, okay? Size 10, 10 and a half, 11. And we found a gun case. Obviously, they were dealing drugs at the place, because they had these cameras and stuff and recording.
Yeah, a little tip for everybody. I've been in these houses before where people are still in them. But when you go in a house and there's nothing in there but just a bunch of crap, and then one room has like 6 monitors that's very nicely put together, and it shows every nick and corner of the outside of the house, you got yourself a drug house.
Definitely. So it was sort of funny. So we're in there going through the stuff. Now we confiscated the Jordans, and I sent you one of the pairs. So.
Yeah, that's right.
And so I was like, what the hell? So we got 100 pair of Air Jordans. And so it was just weird. What happened was, after we boarded it up that night, they broke back in. So they must have had their drug stash somewhere. I'm not sure, and we couldn't find it, or money stash. And they came back in and they stole a few items and left. But that was really weird, when I came up and the door being open, and the guy must have ran out the side. So it was just sort of.
Did they stay out, or did they come back and try and stay there at all?
No, they didn't. After the first time they broke back in, they did not come back.
Gotcha. So the heirs, they hadn't been to the house in 8 years, something like that, you said? So they had no idea. How long does that process take if you've got squatters in to get them out?
It all depends on the situation. This I think we got lucky in the filing, because the police knew it was a drug house, but it can take 2-3 months depending on the process to get the squatters out.
Yeah, so I guess good for everybody to know, just because somebody doesn't have rights to be in a property doesn't mean you can get them out overnight.
Yeah, we got another one, which I'll go into later, with the squatters are suing us, and it's a big mess.
Oh, I want to hear about that one as we get to it. But anyway, we'll finish up this one first. So you got the deal for like $1,000. You were into it, right? And they deeded you over title. You basically had to satisfy or negotiate the judgments and liens, and then you paid the heirs a little bit of bonus money on the back end, basically. Is that the way it worked out?
Yeah, but it turned out, I don't know exactly, but somehow the statute of limitations had run out for a lot of the liens and judgments. So we're able to find a title company to insure over them. So there's like a $15,000 or $20,000 mortgage judgment, and there were some other judgments, probably about $30,000, $40,000. And because they were past the statute of limitations, they didn't apply.
So that was pure profit. You just made profit by finding a title company that would insure over those.
Yeah, that's right. And then there's some city liens, which we negotiated down. But so we ended up putting under contract for $95,000, and then the taxes. We had to pay the back taxes.
Yep.
But we didn't pay them until closing. So we sold that 2 weeks ago. Our net was $66,000 on about $1,000 investment in about 90 days.
All from a lead on a tax delinquent list.
Yep. The tax delinquents, I hate to say this, now I'm going to get a bunch of competition, but it's the hottest, best list if you know how to work it.
Now, here's a question for you. When I look at tax delinquent for my state here, we basically start our tax foreclosure process on year 3 of delinquency. So when we pull our lists and we look at them, we start to scrub off generally years 1 for sure. We'll look at year 2, but really we want to find the ones that are year 3 and beyond. Once you get past year 3, they kind of go into this purgatory period where, yes, the money's accruing and it says that they owe more, but the counties don't really want to take the properties back, so they give you this long redemption period to come and pay off the taxes. So really that number at 3 years to like 6 years, even though they say they start the tax foreclosure process 3 years, it really takes much longer than that to get all the way through it. So when we pull the list, we'll look at those that have those much bigger balances that are at least 3 years past due in order to justify the marketing expense, because otherwise it's people just don't want to pay the taxes yet most of the time. How do you guys look at it in your state? Is it something similar?
Well, there's really no rhyme or reason. Sometimes they'll foreclose after 3 years, but we have a lot of properties that are over 10 years.
Wow.
And so I don't understand exactly what their process is, because they're getting more aggressive now. They have 2 attorneys doing it, but there's no real rhyme to reason when they start doing it. Because I've got a couple that are 20 plus years and they haven't done anything on. So I don't really understand, what the whole process.
Are you guys a tax lien state where they or a tax deed state where they or where they're called tax liens, right? Yeah, where they basically can sell off the debt then, and the county still get the money.
Tax delinquents where they foreclose.
Okay, but in the interim, they're not selling tax liens
No.
to highest bidders, and so that they can get money and then basically continue their operations, and then the investor who buys the tax liens gets the ongoing interest that's not paid or whatever. You're not one of those states?
No, they just let it run up and then they foreclose on the property.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. I can't believe they go that long though, but it sounds like they've staffed up to start going after more of them. So
they have. No, one thing I forgot to tell you is the first thing we did once we pulled up, that the property's behind on taxes, we used a thing called Been Verified. It's a cheaper skip trace program. It's good, but we just put the person's name in it, and then it turned out that she was deceased. So that's how we knew she was passed away, and go pull the estate file.
Gotcha. So you kind of. Yeah, checkpoints basically. You've got tax delinquent, you've been verified her, and then you found out she had passed away, and then you found out there was an open estate file on it. And from there, now it's you've dug for gold, you found a little bit of gold, and now it's time to make some phone calls and see if you can put a deal together.
Yep.
Very cool. So you sold it. What did you sell it as, a wholesale type deal or a fixer on MLS? How'd you sell it?
Yeah, we sold it MLS. We went and we basically cleaned it out. That's all we did is, I took all the Jordans and all the merchandise out of there.
That's a lot of Jordans, by the way. That's a big eBay account you could put out there.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'll just sell them little by little, when I need money, or I'll give them away to podcast hosts and stuff like that, But
I won't argue with that. Yeah.
But what was the question again? I have ADD.
I don't know. I do too. What did I ask you? How'd you sell it? MLS. You put it on MLS. Yeah.
We put it on MLS. We did a flat fee listing. Put on MLS, and then we just cleaned it out, and that's all we did. And then someone came, made his offer, and we closed it out.
Gotcha. So you basically sold it as a fixer type property. Do you guys list your own stuff, or did you have an agent that does flat fee stuff for you?
We have an agent that does flat fee. It's like anywhere from $750 to 1%.
Okay.
So that helps out.
And what do they handle? I'm just curious, like in terms of the flat fee stuff, they do less, obviously, because you're paying them less, but do they just put it on there and then you just run the negotiations and they just deliver any offers, or how does that work for you?
Pretty much. We'll do the negotiations. He just put the pictures on there, and then he'll help us a little bit with the negotiations. But basically, we pretty much run it ourselves.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, it cost you, $1,000 or less than $1,000 in agent costs on the listing side to sell it. So there you go. Can't complain about that.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of times that's the best way, because you never know who's going to pay what. And so if you list them, and like I said, we were into it for $1,000 plus the clean out, so we don't have a lot of money, invested. You might as well list it and maximize it. So I think that's probably a lot of these deals. That's the best way to go.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, there's no reason not to. I mean, you got so little money into it, you might as well give it max exposure and just get the most you can for it. And obviously, you guys did. So $66K pop on that one, which with a little bit of, you had some work, you had some fireworks, you had to ride a little bit of an emotional roller coaster, a tweaker roller coaster. But that's a hell of a pop for a $100K house to make $66,000 on. I mean, that percentage-wise, that's pretty unheard of these days.
Yeah, $1,500 investment makes $66K in 90 days. But we do have a lot of time. There's a lot of time talking to people, negotiating, so but that one wasn't too bad. We didn't have a tremendous amount in time in that one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next one that we were going to talk about.
Squatter number 2.
Yeah.
This one is ongoing saga. What happened was we bought this house. I guess the guy, he was getting ill and the son had power of attorney. The house we thought was vacant. Okay. So we took it subject to. And what happened was we went there and there were people living it. We're like, how can you guys live? We own this property. And they're Morris nationals and not.
What does that mean, Morris nationals?
They basically, and I don't understand it totally, but they renounce their United States citizenship.
Huh.
And anyways, a big problem with some of the Moorish nationals breaking into houses and having trouble getting them out. So it is a problem. I'm not saying all Moorish nationals like that, because I'm sure there are a lot of good folks, but there is an element that's doing it. But so they broke in, and then so they ended up, once we went and said, hey, we own the house, they said, no, we have a 3-year verbal lease, which is not true. We even had affidavit from the owner saying no, there's no lease there. So we ended up going through the legal process. It was a pain. We had to serve them, but then they sent us a cease and desist order, like don't come on our property, even though it wasn't their property. So we ended up getting the police come to evict them, and there's two people living there. They got in a fight with the police officers, so they get arrested for trespassing, and they get arrested in addition for trespassing for assaulting a police officer.
Wow.
So the next day we boarded it up. The next day they came back, broke in again, and got rearrested. And now they put a lien against the property, and they're filing a lawsuit against us. They've contacted the Attorney General. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know how this one's going to turn out. But
I'm curious. So this doesn't help the narrative about attorneys, but what friggin' attorney takes on a case from tweakers that are squatting in a house that are trying to sue somebody who owns the house when they have no right to be there whatsoever, right? Doesn't that seem a little sketchy?
It does, but supposedly and now Charlotte City is getting together to talk about this. There's a big problem overall because squatters have quite a few rights. So you got to be real careful how you handle them. And, talking to attorneys, there's like, these things can go on for months. But now they're suing to get back into the house. We just got a letter from the state attorney general saying we've got a complaint against you. They want to get back into the house. So
they're out of the house. They want back in, which means they probably got their stash in there somewhere, is my guess.
I don't know.
So they're suing you. What are they suing you for?
Something like, I don't know. I have to take a look at the
I mean,
suit.
beyond it being ridiculous, right? I mean, it's just absurdity, but like they're actually claiming damages for being put out on the street.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. Only in America can you sue somebody that you're not supposed to be somewhere and say that you've got damages for it, right? So
that's the ongoing saga on that one.
So you bought it though. So do you have any carrying costs on it or anything like that while in the interim so that you can keep it up?
Yeah, we had a subject to, so we're making the monthly payment while we're going through all this. We've had it almost two months or maybe 3 months. And so we're making that monthly payment until we can, get everything straightened out.
Gotcha. And how much is it? A sizable amount or is it pretty minimal?
I think it's minimal. But
okay.
It's funny. I'm letting my partner handle that. I don't even know what the payment is. I don't even know what we bought the house for.
There you go. Delegate. There you go. Right. So, yeah. Well, that's probably the craziest lawsuit I've ever heard. We've dealt with a few over the years. We're in the middle of one right now. Well, we could be in the middle of one right now with a general contractor for a house behind us who says that we owe him $9,000, which is just an absurd bill. That then anybody in our state can lien your property if they're a contractor, even if there's no way in hell you owe them anything. And then you have to bond over it, go through mediation, and explain to the world that the people that are trying to extract money from you are idiots. So we may have to go through that process. But I've never heard of a squatter actually suing somebody. Now, we have squatters here that are bad. We have to, whenever we buy a house in Southeast Portland, we keep the signs down. We try and make it look occupied. If it's like in between tearing it down and the point where, we clear out the old owners, we need to try and make it as occupied as possible or close all the blinds. Because the squatters here, I swear to God, they send like pigeons with messages. They find one house and they send it out, and we have a massive homeless problem here. And so with that comes a lot more squatters, right? And they send that pigeon out, and it's like they round up everyone in the a 5-mile radius, and they end up in your house. And we have some squatter rights here as well that are pretty absurd. And so if you get them in your house, it's a real pain in the ass to get them out. So we do a lot to just try and keep them out from the beginning. That's for sure.
That makes sense. But sometimes, like this other house I'm going to tell you about on Bank Street, it came with squatters. So it's like, so that one wasn't too bad.
Well, let's talk about that one, because that one you knew going into it then. So basically somebody sold you the house because they didn't want to deal with their squatter problem, right?
Well, yeah, what happened was it was another tax delinquent, and we searched down. The guy was passed away, and there's 2 heirs. We pulled the obituary, and we made a deal with one of the heirs. He lives up in New York. I think we gave him $1,500, and he got another $2,000 or $3,000, and we got everything taken care of. But his sister was holed up in another house, and she wouldn't come out. And we tried. She had no electricity, no water. We couldn't get her out of that house and say, we want to give you money. So we had to do what's called a partition sale. So we basically had to sue her, and the house went for sale at the auction. Well, since we owned half the house, we were able, and for some reason, the partition sales don't get as much exposure. So it went for only like $30,000. Now it's a rundown duplex. So we bought the whole thing for $30,000, but we already owned half of it for very little money. That makes sense. We did.
Well, let's go through the logistics again, just so our listeners understand. So we got, let's start from the beginning. There were multiple heirs.
2 heirs.
2 heirs. You bought half the interest.
Yep.
And so with half the interest, you could force a sale.
Yes.
And
a partition sale.
And a partition sale. If that partition sale goes through, then does it pay off both you and the other owner, or does it just pay off your ownership?
Both us and the other owner.
Okay, so it basically is if you have 2 heirs or 2 owners, one doesn't want to sell, one does want to sell, you use a partition sale to force selling, essentially, right?
Yep.
Okay, and so then who hosts the auction? Is it you have to have an auction company? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, we just hired an attorney who's specialized in partition sale, and once they approved it, it's like a city auction, the same type thing as a tax auction or a regular foreclosure, but they just don't get as much exposure, so there's only a couple people bidding on it.
Gotcha. So you would probably, in hindsight, it might be good to, let the float that out to the investor network in your area and be like, hey, there's a partition sale going on today at noon at this property, come bid, essentially, because the attorney's probably not doing a great job marketing it, right?
Yeah. If you want to run the bid up and collect excess proceeds, but we wanted to buy the whole thing, so we're happy that it didn't.
Okay. All right. I get the angle now. All right. That's why I'm trying to find this stuff out. All right. That's what I wanted to clarify. So the less exposure, the better in your case with the partition sale, because you're trying to buy out the other owner.
Right.
Got it.
But if it had gone up high enough, then we would have just collected our excess proceeds and been gone.
Right.
We would have won either way.
All right. So you had game plan 1, game plan 2, depending on how it plays out. All right. So the partition sale happens. It's sold for $30K, you said?
Yep.
And so somebody else bought it. How does that $30K shake out then?
Well, we bought it.
Oh, you bought it. Okay. So you bought it for $30K in total then?
In total. And then the taxes came out of that. And so we owned the whole thing, and they paid off the taxes too that came out of that. So you bid on your own property, basically. Yep.
But then you get half of those proceeds as well that went through. Okay. All right. That's crazy.
It's a cool maneuver. It's just we learned stuff. Like, I think one day I was drinking beer with one of my attorneys, and we were talking about, like I only got half of a house, and he goes, "Hey, you can do this thing called a partition sale." I'm like, "What's that?" I don't even know what it is. And then I just talked to the attorney, and he explained it to me. And like, okay, let's go, let's do it. It's just so. The reason I've learned about it was just talking to my attorney. I have a problem here. We bought this half. We can't get the other half. And he said, well, we can do this thing called a partition. And that's just that simple,
I wonder, does that happen a fair bit then? I mean, if there's attorneys that specialize in it, there must be a number of estates where somebody wants to sell, somebody doesn't, and it forces sale, I would admit. I mean.
Yeah. There's we're getting ready to do a second one right now. So
you are, okay.
A lot.
All right. So how. Yeah. That one, are these all coming from your tax delinquents? Like, is that the root of all your leads here mainly?
I hate to say it, but the number one is tax delinquents. Then number 2 is foreclosures. Then number 3 is vacants. And our fourth way, which we've killed it too, is really good, is just playing on a property. Or we have a property lookup system. Like I think I was telling you last time, they're opening the light rail. So we looked at all the houses real close to light rail, and we just called the people. We ended up buying like 6 pieces of property. I think about 6 pieces of property that now we can sell and make about close to $700,000 on 6 pieces of property because we bought them 2 years ago. So that's one of the strategies we use too, is just working on our property lookup system. And where areas are transitioning, and just click on the stuff and then call the owners.
Gotcha.
That's not rocket science.
No, that's just getting in the path of improvement, right? I mean, you see we had light rail, and I don't know if we talked about this last time, but we have light rail going out to a part of past Southeast Portland. It's called Milwaukee, and they put it in. It's called the Orange Line, and it started initially. See, the problem with light rail here in Portland is that it's really a transit system for tweakers and problem makers mostly, not so much young professionals. It's transitioning a little bit as it starts to go into the burbs a little more, or where like we'll call it contributing members of society live, and it's not just shuttling around the no goods of the world. But we didn't know how that was going to play out, right? Because when they extended that line, it was really just a way for no goods to get around for the most part. And when they extended it out further, we didn't know if that was just basically going to run the drugs out further, or whether or not good people were going to start using it and it was going to be a benefit. Turns out it's been a benefit and it's improved it. But that was a question mark for us. Sounds like in your guys' case, it's just been a benefit all around, which is why, the property values have gone up so much. But really all you did is just, okay, here's the city planning. Here's where improvement's going to happen. Here's how we think the neighborhood's going to improve in value. So let's just cold call these people and see if we can get them to sell.
Yep. Very simple,
Were you looking at anything other than obviously you had to pull their phone numbers, right? But and who they are and who owns it. But were you qualifying them at all on like length of ownership or equity, or were you just calling everybody?
Pretty much calling everybody. We just picked and we did look a little bit at people that owned them longer, and if they were tax delinquent or whatever. We just pretty much called everybody. We got 7 deals, and 6 deals. We could probably make close to 700,000 if we sold them right now. And that the light rail was getting ready to open up. It's already under construction. You didn't have to be smart to do that.
Yeah. Well, that's just called paying attention, right?
Yeah.
What you said vacants in there. What's your process with vacants? Or do you run them through like a USPS system, find the vacants, and then start scrubbing them down from there?
Typically when we're driving, knocking on doors, we'll get them from bird dogs, but typically it's driving for dollars.
Okay.
And we get them, and all we do is we put them into bin verified. We actually start with the property lookup system, find out who owns them, when they bought them. They run a thing called CRS data to see if there's a mortgage on it. Okay. And then the next thing is we put them in bin verified to see if to track them down or if they're dead. And then if they're dead, we simply just go pull the obituaries and start calling the rightful heirs.
Gotcha.
It's a pretty easy process. And, like last time, I think I told you about the one on Laburnum that we made $243,000 on, and that was a vacant house.
Man, you make it sound so simple.
No, that one was pretty difficult.
I mean, the process of just finding the leads, right? Everybody's like, you can't find deals these days. It's difficult, which it is to some extent. But if you're willing to do some outward marketing and not just rely on the phone to ring, you can kind of sniper in on these potential deals that, it seems like you've gotten really good at finding.
Yeah, and stuff like I think I told you last time, we find a house with extra land, we can subdivide a lot off. And one thing I want to give you a quick update. There's one I talked about last time that we bought as part of a tax delinquent where the lady threw the lot in for free, and it was a small lot. Do you remember talking about Walford? It's a small lot.
I do.
It wasn't buildable, but we hired an attorney and we got a variance. And the variance just basically says you can build on it now. We'll bring the setbacks in a little bit so it's legally buildable, because the city wants you to build. They want more houses. So we just hired a good attorney, and we were into that now for maybe $4,000, including the variance, and it's under contract for $100,000. It's supposed to close out next week. So that'll be like a $96,000 deal on a property we basically got for free.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Just so our listeners know, so a variance, the way it works with building is you have your code setbacks, which is basically you got your front setbacks, you got your side setbacks, and you got your rear setbacks for a new home being built on a lot. And sometimes when you have these non-conforming size lots, the code setbacks make it near impossible to build a home that's, marketable and functional. And so if you get a variance to that code, now all of a sudden you're taking a lot that maybe isn't as buildable and you make it normal buildable, we'll call it. And if you do that, you can build a normal product on it. If you can build a normal product on it, now you can sell it for market value, right? Or essentially close to it, which is what you guys did, which is how you made all that money.
Yeah. So that's just, I hear, like you said, people are always like, I can't find deals. But if you learn the niches like this between like variances, subdividing land, work these tax delinquents, work these niche markets, we literally have more leads than we could ever work, and we got 4 or 5 people here working them, and I don't think we'll ever get through them. So I think that people need to change their mindsets, in my opinion, and look for these niche type things and learn this stuff, because not a lot of people are doing it, and the profits are crazy. I mean,
yeah, the tax delinquent is a no-brainer. Are you just pulling, constant lists or updating your tax delinquent list fairly regularly, and then just snipering off of that list? Is that the process, I guess?
Yeah, we pulled it 6 months ago, and we're still working off it. We just check again to see if the tax has been paid off, but we're just working off this list we pulled 6 months ago.
What about foreclosures? Are you just pulling people that have equity that have a close auction date? How do you work those?
Yeah, we have a big we pull those, and then we have our VAs sort them, and then like if they're newly filed, we'll go knock on the doors, try to find out their situation, and then the best ones are either been sold at auction or just before they've been sold at auction. That's when people are more motivated. So we're knocking on the doors, making phone calls. So we do pull the list. We look for older mortgages typically, and places with equity.
Gotcha. What about, how do you deal with the ones that have just been sold? Is there like a redemption period? Is that why okay.
Yeah, there's a 10-day redemption period in North Carolina, and then someone can bid and it can go another 10 days. Sometimes they'll go months after they've been sold.
Gotcha.
I think I told you about the one on West Boulevard where we got that one as a foreclosure, and then we made $90,000 on that one foreclosure.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just, I mean, like you said, niches, right? You're working the niches, you're not working the masses. But then obviously you have to not be afraid to talk to people too, right?
Yeah, you got to get on the phone. You got to, and when they say no or they got it handled, you got to say, great, do you mind if I give you a call back? You got to be persistent. And most of our deals have been, people said no, or there were so many problems, and we kept persevering and kept calling them back and kept in touch with them. So you got to be, and then when you get stuck in one way where there's a problem, you got to go figure it out. Like this, I think I want to do a follow up real quick on the one I think I told you about where there's this one. It was another tax delinquent, and we kept chasing the lady down. What happened was it was put into an LLC, okay, so we pulled up the LLC. And then we also pulled up the 2 previous owners, which are the husband and wife. So we kept trying to track the husband down. We couldn't find him. So we tracked the wife down. And I was like, she's like, I'm just letting the house go. I don't want it. It's got a $750,000 lien on the property. Well, we did some research, and it turned out they put it in LLC just before the lien attached. So it didn't attach to the property. Okay. So, she was getting ready to walk, and we said, look, we can make you money. We can make you money. She says, I really don't want to have anything to do with this. Now, also the corporation was defunct. They not paid the taxes on it. But we have an attorney, and there's a thing called winding down a corporation where you can still have the old owner sign, even though the company is defunct. So we were able to use that provision and got title insurance. So what was really nice was she's going to let this house go. We gave her $28,000 up front. And we're giving her 18% of the profits when we fix it up and sell it. And so she's a single mom, and so it was great. We were able to give her money. She needed money for kids, and she's going to walk from this deal. She had decided, I don't want anything to do with it, and we kept having to call her back and persistent. So we gave her the $28,000. We just finished fixing up. It's under contract. It closes tomorrow. Our share of the profits on that deal is going to be somewhere between $180,000 and $190,000. On that one deal.
Wow. What was the $750K lien? Because that's a big lien.
I'm not sure exactly what it was. I think her ex-husband did some crazy stuff. I don't know. And I'm not sure what the lien was for.
Okay, but the company was debunked. She basically shifted it over into the LLC so that she could probably keep it as an asset that's not held personally. Was she and the husband on the LLC, do you know, or just her?
Well, what happened was she got it in the divorce.
Oh, okay.
So in the divorce, so it was up the process. We had to make sure that $750,000 lien didn't attach. Then we had to tell her to pull her divorce decree that showed she had the rights to it, and so she had the rights to the LLC in the divorce.
Man, we're getting in the weeds here, but I think it's important for people to hear because there's all these little nuances that you don't know about until you learn about. via doing deals, right? I mean, it's a crazy. You pull a property, it's tax delinquent. There's an LLC. You got to look up who's the members of the LLC. You got to chase them down. You find out that they've got a whopping $750K lien against it for some crazy stuff. She's divorced. You got to pull a divorce decree to make sure that she's got the asset. You got to find an attorney that can actually do a winding down of the LLC signature so that it can still be signed on, even though the company's been debunked. And then make sure you can find somebody that'll give title insurance on your purchase. And then you clean it up, clean it out, rehab it, and then you sell it, and then you make a ton of money.
Yeah. But see, sometimes we don't know how these deals are going to work out.
Of course.
We just let's get the contract signed, and we'll figure it out along the way. And that's what we sort of did, But
I think a lot of it is just you're planting a lot of seeds, right? I mean, some of these seeds, turn out and come to fruition. Some of them are just duds and, nothing grows, but you got to work them all the same. So.
Yeah.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
I saw on your Facebook feed the other day that you live in a bit of a crazy neighborhood. You got gunshots ringing out at night and whatnot. You're making all this money. What the hell are you doing living in the hood still?
Well, I'm on the edge of the hood. Okay.
Okay.
It's technically Noda, but right across the street down the way, they like to shoot guns. And typically about once a year, someone gets murdered over off of Atmore, Dinglewood. You
shouldn't laugh,
count
but
on that.
Yeah.
It's just once a year on average is that. But I rent a house for $500 a month. I have a roommate. We don't have central air. And, but I live cheap. But because I went through 2008. I lost everything in 2008. And, I'd rather put my money back to work. And I'd like to go to Duke basketball games, front row, and spend money there. So I spend my money on things like that, eating out, and I love to drink. So I would rather do that. And I don't need a lot. I mean, the house, it looks like from the 50s. It's run down, but I got a bed there. I don't care.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, it's about knowing what makes you happy, right? I mean, not everybody needs a giant house and all that stuff, right? If you're happy, living how you're living and going and sitting front row at Duke games, which I know you did this last week, and having enough leisure time to go have some adult beverages whenever you like, that's a good life,
Yeah. And I guess I still got the 2008 depression mentality where I'm a little bit afraid to spend my money. Last time I talked about how I ended up on my mom's couch for a few months, and, I don't want to go through that again. So I got a little bit of that mental block on, too, that I got to get over.
Yeah, I think that going through that was kind of like of the generations of old that went through the depression. You hear the stories, but those of us that have been in the game long enough to have gone through that up and down, it definitely left a mark, and it definitely affects how we live and run our business today. There's no question. There's some of the young bucks out there that were, still living in mommy and daddy's house or in college during that time didn't really get the full effect of what that, brought. But it definitely left a mark on all of us that were in it. That's for sure.
Yeah, it still does this day. So.
All right. So to summarize here, what I got from our conversation, number one is you deal with a lot of crazy stuff. That's which is, we knew that. But the majority of your leads are really tax delinquent stuff that you're just drilling down on them. You're having conversations with people, and you're just seeing where those conversations go, and you're running with the leads that have opportunity after you talk to them. Yeah.
I would probably say about 40% of our deals are tax delinquent. Then, like I said, it's the foreclosures, the vacants, real close behind that, and then just playing around on the property lookup system. That's how we find all our deals, Yeah.
Just getting in front of people that are in the path of progress, essentially, kind of like that light rail deal.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming back on here and talking about these deals. It just blows my mind the profit margins that you're able to make with these, smaller price point sales, like $66K on $100,000 sale is just, I mean, you don't see that unless you got a lot of layers of the onion to peel back to get a deal done these days.
Yeah, but there's quite a few like that. We're getting on deed for $500, $1,000, and then the promise, because the people know there's problems and we pay them later. So I'm just amazed at the spreads we're getting. I still wake up every morning, not believing the kind of deals we're doing. It's just it blows my mind. So.
Yeah, I mean, with a lot of guys out there that are running crews and doing rehabs at sub 10% margins, if you're getting a 66 we'll call it a 70% margin on a 100K sale, and you're not even doing any rehabbing, that's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, we got real quick. We got these other 2 lots that we put together. We bought these 2 lots, and then we configured them another way and configured them to 4 lots. We're into that deal for I think it's $240, and we had that under contract for $430,000. And all we did is one was a tax delinquent lot with a bunch of heirs. It was a lot of work. The other one we bought full value. We combined them, and then we subdivided them the other way on the other street and got 4 lots out of them. And we don't have a tremendous amount of time in that, but that's gonna be like $170,000 deal, and that closes out in May.
You're playing a little real life Monopoly there. Buying one at discount, buying one at market, putting them together, and repartitioning it as 4 lots.
Yeah, so it's just a little niche we learned, and it's fun. I just love it. So, and also I started a mastermind group too.
Let's talk about it. Yeah,
it's $105 a month. It's 4 Zoom meetings a month, and we have a Facebook page. It's exclusive for the members. And I just talk about these deals, how we find them, how we structure them. And $105 is way too fucking cheap. But way too cheap. But I want to show people some of the stuff we do. And I'm hoping that we can do some joint ventures with people, make some consulting. But, we break these deals down and just show them the different ways to find them. Plus, we have people add value to it, too. So it's not just Uncle Karl. And but if people go to, I think it's Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind Group. It's if you Google Uncle Karl and Friends Mastermind Group, and we decided that we're going to give you a free membership.
All right, I'm down with that. Well, with that being said, I'll say $105 a month is worth it just to be able to pick Crazy Karl's head about tax delinquent stuff. That's for sure. Based on, where else are you going to get information on? Just some of the stuff we talked about. The winding down of the LLC, the partition sale, wrapping in the divorce. Just you're in the weeds, man. You got the detailed details that people are like, where do I go to ask somebody this stuff? I have no idea. You're in it, man.
Yep.
So, well, that's awesome. I'll make sure that we have a link in the show notes, and I will take my honorary membership with pride on that one. So
okay. And then send a picture wearing your Uncle Karl shirt and your shoes.
I'm going to post that right after we're done here. I'm going to have the shoes on too. So I'll have my tweaker shoes and my Uncle Karl shirt out in Facebook land today. You can count on that. So, and maybe we'll even put that, maybe that'll be the picture for this episode. We'll see when it goes out. So
that'd be great.
Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming back on and doing interview 2.0 here. Any last parting words of wisdom, advice, or where people can find you or interact with you other than the mastermind group?
I'll give you my phone number. That 704-777-7777. And then they get extension 1. It actually says buy or sell a house. That's the best way to reach me. That or probably just.
Friend you on Facebook?
Find me on Facebook. Send me a message. Sometimes you have to message me 2 or 3 times before I respond.
So he's not being an ass. He's just a busy guy. So just be persistent, right? So.
Yeah, be like me. Be persistent. Bug the hell out of me. So because I love to talk this stuff, and I love it's just fun. It's just I love it.
Awesome.
I would do this for free. Well, yeah, almost free, just because it's so much fun.
We'll say almost free, right? Because we are to make some money, right?
Yeah.
To be honest, right? So, all right. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming back on. I very much appreciate the shirt and the shoes, and of course, my honorary membership into the mastermind group. But I know everybody got a lot of value out of it. I love talking real estate stories, and you got the best ones in the business, man. I got to tell you, I got to give you that.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed our interview with Crazy Uncle Karl 2.0. The guy's got some amazing amount of wisdom in that noggin of his, especially when it comes to the niches of real estate investing. And we focused in a lot on tax delinquent property. which many of you guys can get those lists. It's a little bit more challenging than your traditional list because you can't get it through a list source or something like that. You actually have to request it from either the city or the county. But if you can get it, as he did, and then you can kind of sniper off that list and pick off properties that are delinquent that you want to go after, make contact with them, and then put deals together like he's done, you can do really well. And so it's a great place to pull a universe of people that you can ultimately then scrub down a little more, and then find the problem properties within it and solve those problems and make a lot of money. So anyway, hopefully you got a lot out of it. We were down in the weeds. We were talking tactics this week. And for those of you more experienced investors, I'm sure you were, loving that as I was. All right. So before I leave you guys this week, I want to leave you with a closing success quote. And this week's quote is not one that I guess I can attribute to one person individual. So I'll say that crazy Uncle Karl said it because it makes sense based on what we were talking about and the overall theme of this week's show. So this week's closing success quote is by crazy Uncle Karl. Or I'll say it is anyway. And the quote is, "The riches are in the real estate investing niches." Obviously, I took that from the riches are in the niches quote. But you get what I'm saying, right? So focus on the niches, learn them inside and out. And if you do that, you'll probably be taking home checks like Uncle Karl is, which are big checks compared to whatever the sale price is, or at least percentage-wise anyway, and also dollar-wise. So can't complain about that. All right, guys, this wraps up episode 257 of the Real Dealz podcast. I'll see you all next week.